0, 1, 2, 3. Let's get started.
Okay, so today I'm going to make a video that I've been promising for like a month now, but essentially it's going to be on all the different things that you can do to increase the life of the baffles inside of your plastic suppressor. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, and this is the first video of mine that you've ever seen, I would suggest go and watch one of my other videos on 3D printed composite suppressors, which I describe how you can legally make them at home with a regular 3D printer, some composites, and most importantly, a Form 1 from the ATF, which goes along with a $200 tax stamp. But essentially, we're talking about these things right here. Okay, this is just kind of an example version so that you can see what the insides of them look like. And so the first thing right off the bat to take into consideration if you want to extend the life of these suppressors is what platform you're going to be using them on. So for instance, if you're going to use one of these things on a 22, it's basically going to last forever. Like 22 is such a low amount of pressure and such a low amount of temperature coming out of the barrel versus bigger calibers that it's not going to wear these things out in any, you'd have to go through probably tens of thousands of rounds to wear one of these things out with a 22. So the platform itself is going to make a huge difference. Like the longer barrel, the better. In the beta group, there was a guy who was able to get like 2,000 rounds out of a 5.56 AR because he was using a 20-inch barrel. Whereas if you move down to even like a 16-inch barrel, that number is probably going to be closer to like 1,000 rounds before it wears out. Just because, the shorter the barrel, the more pressure and temperature this thing is experiencing at the end of that barrel. Like a 10-inch would beat the crap out of one of these in a very short amount of time, okay? And that's the same thing even with metal suppressors. Like if you go buy a metal suppressor, they're gonna tell you what it's rated for. Like if it's an aluminum suppressor, they're gonna tell you that it's not full auto rated, that it's gonna have a cool down time, and they're gonna put barrel length restrictions on it, So even with metal suppressors, you have to make these considerations, but it's even more important when you're talking about suppressors that are made out of plastic. So one example is I have a 9mm carbine. It's the Smith & Wesson folding pistol carbine, and it's a 9mm with a 16-inch barrel. So that thing does very little wear and tear on these. Like I could easily get thousands of rounds through one of these suppressors off of that particular platform. Same thing with 45. I've shot hundreds of rounds with my 1911 through one of my suppressors, and I have pictures of what the baffles look like posted in the posts section of my page. So if you want to see what those look like, go check those out. Basically, the smaller calibers and pistol caliber stuff is going to significantly put less wear on the baffles themselves. The bigger you get, the faster you're going to wear it out. So once you get up to like 7.62, you're really going to be wearing these things out, and I don't have any numbers that I can give you. Like I don't know if it's going to last 500 rounds or 1,000 if you're shooting it off of an AK. I really have no idea. But like I said, the numbers that I have seen, that guy with the 20-inch barrel, 5.56, he was able to get over 2,000 rounds. Whereas a lot of people were seeing failure at around 1,000 rounds with 16-inch barrels. And when I say failure, I mean that the bore of the suppressor gets worn out and expanded so much that it effectively stops suppressing. These things, when you make them with the carbon fiber or the metal tube to cover the outside, they usually don't fail, by, detonating the whole suppressor. Most of the time they fail by the bore expanding so much that it doesn't suppress anymore. Although you will sometimes see, like if you use one of the pre-made tubes, sometimes you'll see that if the epoxy is not absolutely perfectly attached to the suppressor, the whole tube can sometimes shoot off with like half the suppressor still in it. But I've never experienced one of those failures with the carbon fiber sleeves that I described in those other videos. So number one, first and foremost, like I said, is the platform. So barrel length, caliber, all of that stuff, that will make the biggest impact on how long these things last. So if you're looking for suppressing a 22, you can easily make one at home. You don't need to buy one, and it'll last forever. But if you're looking to suppress your AR, then it's going to be, you know, a consideration that you need to take in, that you need to make. Like if you're looking to suppress an AK, you know, if you're looking for something long term, like maybe you shoot a couple hundred rounds a week or something, you're probably going to want to look for a metal can. But so now we're going to get into the things that you can do. Like let's say you've already chosen your platform and now you just want to know how you can maximize the longevity. So first and foremost is going to be this stuff, sodium silicate, also referred to as water glass. This stuff gets used like on concrete and ceramics and stuff. It also gets used in the firearms industry as like a Loctite for muzzle devices, because you can remove it by soaking the muzzle device in, you know, hot water for like a few hours or something like that. But for this particular case, you would apply it with, you would, like after everything's printed, obviously it's not going to be as easy to access, but you take a little paintbrush and dip it in the sodium silicate, and then you paint it onto the baffle. Okay. The one issue that I have with this stuff is sometimes it's hard to get it to spread evenly across the surface. Like you'll notice, especially with PLA Plus, if it has like a really smooth surface finish, it'll you'll put it on the surface and it'll just form droplets. Like it won't spread out evenly. So that can be an issue with getting it to apply. And one way to get around that is to either somehow make the surface less smooth, or also just apply multiple coatings. Like the first coating that you put on might not go on that well, but the subsequent coatings from that point forward will spread more evenly and more smoothly. And when this stuff is exposed to heat, I'll see it. Normally you wouldn't apply it to this part. I just did it for the ease of demonstration. But when this stuff has a lot of heat applied to it, it essentially turns into this like white, puffy substance. I don't really know what it is at that point. I basically just I applied it up here and then I blasted it with a torch just to be able to show you guys what it looks like. But it works to protect the baffles ablatively. So as heat gets applied, it changes into whatever this stuff is, and then it starts to come off in chunks. So, you know, instead of wearing out the plastic, you're essentially wearing out this coating, and it all just gets shot out the end of the barrel. So there are limitations with that. It's not perfect, but it does work a lot. And see, that's another thing I want to make sure to emphasize, is that no matter what you do, you will shoot these things out when you're using, you know, higher caliber stuff, especially rifle rounds. You know, we're dealing with plastic here, so there's no magic bullet. You know, no matter what you do, essentially you are going to still eventually wear these things out. It's important to keep that in mind, just to keep everybody's, you know, expectations in check, right? Like these things are really cool. It's cool that you can make them at home with a 3D printer and some carbon fiber, but you have to have realistic expectations. So the next thing is this stuff right here, JB Weld Extreme Heat. This is like a metal paste. And you can, when it's cured, you know, you can sand it and drill it, and it's like super hard. Like I said, it's like a metal type of epoxy. Normally you would use it for fixing like a muffler on your car or something like that. But in this case, do the same thing with the sodium silicate. You just apply it to the blast baffle. And you don't want to go super thick with the coating for two reasons. One is that, you know, you don't want to change the geometry of this bore. Like, if you put too thick of a coating and you change the geometry of that bore, you can end up having baffle strikes down at the end, because how the bullet travels can be influenced by the bore that it's traveling through. So you want to influence this bore as little as possible. And I talked about that in my last video too, about the bore size and everything like that, but you can watch that one later. So you don't want to put this stuff on super thick. One, because you don't want the bore to be, you know, geometrically altered, and two, because if you put it on super thick, you can end up, you know, if it does fail, it can crack and come off in chunks, and those chunks can either go down and out the end of the barrel, or, you know, potentially, depending on the dwell time of whatever it is that you're shooting, they can end up getting sucked back into the barrel of the gun. So, you know, a thin coating goes a long way, just to make sure, you know, just put it on thick enough that you're not seeing any more of the plastic, and that should, you know, help increase the heat resistance of that blast baffle. I mean, the blast baffle is the one that's really taking the brunt of these forces, and it's the only one that we can really reach with any of this stuff. So it's the primary focus. Obviously, you're not going to be able to get something down into this second chamber. Like, there's no way you're going to be able to coat that second baffle. So really, you know, we're just mitigating here. Also, one thing I forgot to mention, one of the big considerations to make when you're trying to maximize how long the blast baffle lasts is I personally would print the FTN 3.5. So the 4 is the newest, latest file, and it has all of these extra like big holes for the gas to travel through in the baffle itself. If you're gonna print the 4, make sure you print the FTN 4 that has the extra holes that it allows you to stick carbon fiber rods through the baffle itself to reinforce them. Okay, don't print the regular 4. Make sure if you're gonna print the 4, print the one that allows the reinforcement with the carbon fiber rods. But if we're talking specifically about maximizing baffle life, then choose the FTN 3.5 because it's essentially a big solid fat piece of plastic. Okay, so it has the most material and is therefore going to last the longest. Having said that, we're going to move on to our last thing, which is, if you've done any sort of plumbing or home improvement stuff, you already know what this is. Cool gel. So this would, under normal circumstances, like let's say you're soldering some copper pipes or whatever, and it's like, let's say the copper pipe's right up against some drywall or something, you would spray this all over the drywall in order to make sure that while you're torching, you know, in order to solder the pipes, you're not gonna set the wall behind it on fire, right? So I put some of it on this little cardboard right here, just so I could demonstrate. Oh, hold on, I gotta open the torch. But essentially, this stuff just creates a barrier between extreme amounts of heat and the thing behind it. The little burn marks are from before I put the cool gel on. I didn't spread it out the first time, and so the edges where it wasn't covered with the cool gel started to burn, so I had to reapply just to make sure that it was, you know, there was no exposed cardboard. But as you can see, oops, I'm still hitting the edges where it's not applied. So don't try this at home, kids. But cool gel, this stuff honestly is probably going to make the biggest difference out of all of these things that I've shown you today, other than printing the 3.5 and having the most material there. This stuff is going to work better than those other two treatments because this stuff is basically, you're covering the baffle with a thick coating of gel, essentially. Okay, so the downside is that you have to apply this every time you want to shoot. So before you put the can on, you need to squirt a bunch of this stuff in here, right? So it's not like you can just squirt it in there once and then you have a permanent coating that's always going to protect your suppressor. But the upside is that this is going to work significantly better, okay? Because the whole reason that these baffles wear out is that the heat makes the plastic soft, and then the pressure pushes that plastic right down the end of the friggin' bore. So it all just ends up getting shot out of the end of the suppressor. This stuff keeps the plastic from getting soft. And if the plastic doesn't get soft, it's not gonna ablate its way out of the end of the suppressor the same way. So while it is something that you have to continuously apply, like I don't know how many shots you'll get before you need to reapply it. But as long as, you know, like let's say you go through a magazine, you could pull it off and check to see, is it still wet? Or is it starting to look dry? But the point is, as far as what's gonna make it last the absolute longest, this stuff wins by a mile. And there's also the secondary benefit that when you run cans wet, that also increases the amount of suppression. So a lot of times, you know, with a suppressor, you know, you can buy different things to put inside of it, or you can just look up online all the different substitutes for what you can put inside. But essentially, if you put liquids inside of a suppressor, they'll suppress better. Okay, so this is not only going to help increase the lifespan of the baffles themselves by keeping them from getting soft, because it is a liquid, it is also going to help you increase the amount that it suppresses. But like I said, it's still gonna, it's not like a permanent thing. You're gonna have to keep reapplying it, because every time you shoot A bunch of this stuff is just going to get shot straight out the end of the barrel, you know, because it's just a gooey gel. It's not sticking to the surface. It's not a glue or anything like that. So as you fire, you're just going to keep shooting it out of the end of the barrel, right? So overall, as far as rankings go, you know, the first thing, like I said, to take into consideration, just to give a brief summary of everything I've said so far, the platform you're using, that's going to make one of the biggest differences on how long it's going to last. The lower the caliber you use, the longer it's going to last. The suppressor model that you choose to print is going to make a big difference. You know, the FTN 3.5 will last longer than the FTN 4. And as far as these different coatings go, you know, the cool gel itself, you know, while still requiring, you know, constant reapplication, is going to make the largest difference. And it's, you know, compared to these are still good for sure. I didn't actually discover this stuff until like just a couple months ago. And so this is what these are what I was using, you know, back in the beta days. So this stuff I would recommend for sure. If you want to try this stuff, definitely go for it. You could try a combination of different things as well. If this video was helpful to you, feel free to like and subscribe. There's more videos like this on the channel. Like I said, there's a bunch of videos that talk about this specific topic. So if you didn't even know these things existed, go check those out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.